I prepared a kind of a short keynote speech. As per the topic that is provided to me, I try to touch it through the Mahayana or the Sanskrit perspective or Sanskrit tradition perspective. So let me go directly to the paper. According to Buddhist philosophy, the cycle of existence and the nature of suffering are explained through the 12 links of dependent origination. As a complex doctrine, it describes the interdependence of all phenomena and the causes and conditions that give rise to them. A key Buddhist teaching, the 12 links of dependent origination, explains the nature of suffering and the path to liberation. The primary source for Mahayana teachings on the 12 links is the Shali Stambha or Rice Seedling Sutra, where, as Buddha said, "Venerable bhikshus, whoever sees dependent and relative origination sees the Dharma. Whoever sees the Dharma sees the Buddha." What is this dependent and relative origination of which I speak? It is this, because this exists, that arises, because this is born, that is born. It is like this, through the condition of ignorance, compounding factors. From the condition of compounding factors, consciousness, name and form, the 6 sense pairs, contact, feeling, craving, grasping, existence, birth, aging, and death. From the condition of aging and death, agony, wailing, suffering, unhappiness, and mental disturbance of all type arise. Like it merely, this enormous heap of suffering arises. So, as the Buddha said in this famous sutra, which comes from the Mahayana tradition or the Sanskrit tradition, let's look into the 12 links of dependent origination. Our distinctive practice as Buddhists is non-violence, and our distinctive view is dependent origination, as His Holiness the Dalai Lama has noted many times. The writings of Lama Tsongkhapa and Nagarjuna praised Buddha for teaching dependent origination as the most profound teachings of the Buddha. Buddha's realizing of the profundity of 12 links of dependent origination, clearly understanding how beings trap themselves in endless cycle of confusion and misery lead him to attaining the enlightenment. In addition, the Buddha claimed that the 12 links were essential to understanding the teachings of him. However, for many Dharma practitioners, these 12 links remain difficult to comprehend and even harder to relate to their personal experience. I will attempt to share some of my understandings in the hope that will arouse interest in studying and contemplating this important but dense subject. According to Buddhist texts, dependent origination means one of these 3 things. First, dependence upon causes and conditions. Second, dependence on parts. And the third, dependence on a labeling consciousness. Among the 3 connotations, the second is fundamental to the philosophy of Svatantrik Madhyamik school, while the third is unique to the Prasangik Madhyamik school. In this sense, distinctively Buddhist views, the ones shared globally and historically by all Buddhists, are related to the first connotation, condition and cause dependence. Once again, this kind of dependence can be divided into two categories, outer cause and effect, and inner cause and effect. Buddhism places a great deal of emphasis on inner cause and effect rather than outer cause and effect, such as smoke arising from fire, sprouts growing from seeds. The 12 links of dependent origination describes how our present thoughts and actions create our future experiences. Essentially, this Buddhist perspective avoids two extremes. One, believing that external forces such as Creator God determine happiness and suffering. Or the second, believing that human joys and miseries have no deeper meaning. They are simply byproducts of particles aggregating and interacting, whose behavior is dictated by external causes. Unlike most contemporary philosophies, Buddhism holds that these outer causes, the matter that interacts with but does not create our minds, are conditions for our experiences of pleasure and pain. While the root cause lies deeper, in general, we all want happiness and to avoid suffering, and we often want others to enjoy the same. Even the most well-intentioned efforts to end suffering will be limited as long as we remain ignorant of the real causes. So, what is the cause of suffering? According to the Buddha's first sermon on the Four Noble Truths, suffering is the result of delusions, karmic actions, and cravings. What is the exact mechanism that which these three factors cause suffering? Teachings on the 12 links clarifies this subtle causal process, which is simply an expansion of the first two noble truths. It is unclear how the 12 links function and interact in sutras, such as the one I quoted above. So, different interpretations have developed throughout Buddhist history. According to some interpretations, the links unfold in a single instant, while others see them as representing different stages in life. I think all of these interpretations are useful for contemplation, but keep it simple. I will follow the Gelug interpretation that Tsongkhapa formulated in texts like the Golden Garland, Lamrim Chemo, and the Ocean of Reasoning. Asanga's exposition in Compendium of Manifest Knowledge and Vasubandhu's explanation of the Sutra on Dependent Relativity serve primarily as a basis of this interpretation. It was Gyaltsab Je's commentary on Compendium that further clarified Asanga's presentation. In Asanga's view, the progression of the first to the 12th links described in the sutra above is intended to give a general picture of cause and effect, but it does not illustrate how a particular action leads to particular outcome. Instead, a complete cycle of 12 links unfolds as follows. Due to ignorance, in Sanskrit it is avidya. I will use the Sanskrit terms following this quite often. Strong karmic actions or the volitional activities or formation, samskara, that is Sanskrit. So that was second. And then the third is compounded, which are imprinted on consciousness. The third is vijnana or vijnana. In turn, craving is the trishna, and then grasping, clinging, upadana. These are the number 8 and number 9. Ripen and imprint, which then surfaces in consciousness at death at existence. Then the becoming bhava, the 10th one. During that next rebirth, the substantial continuity of the mind becomes both name and form, namarupa, which is the 4th one. And then the birth, that is the jati, the 11th one, simultaneously. After that, new birth, aging and death, jara and marana, the 12th one, begins. As fetal development progresses, 6 sense spheres, 6 sense bases, salayatana, context, sparsh, 6, and the feeling, vedana, 7, arise sequentially, and aging and death continues. So, from that point of view, 1, 2, 3, 8, and 9, and the 10 are the causes, while 4, 5, 6, 7, and 11, and 12 are the results. So, there are 6 that falls into the category of the causes, and then the 6 that falls into the category of the result. This doesn't follow a linear kind of order. It is a kind of a mixed order. In particular, 1, 2, and 3 are the impelling causes that leave an imprint on the mind, while 8, 9, and 10 are the actualizing causes that ripen that imprint and lead to a new suffering rebirth. While this process may seem confusing at first, it becomes clearer through habituation and understanding. It is also apparent from the non-linear progression that these are 12 links of interdependent origination. Despite tracing a particular pattern of cause and effect, all the links are mutually reinforcing and interdependent. It is ignorance that induces karmic actions, but it is the imprints of karmic actions that cause ignorance to increase. Craving actually leads to feelings, but feelings themselves cause more cravings. We can use the conceptual structure to uncover pattern in our own psychology and make sense of what often seems chaotic and non-linear. We all live in samsara, which is nothing more than our own body and mind, and their uncontrolled cycles in this and future lives. Our lives in samsara are not a cycle through a place, but rather a cycle of moving between these 12 links. To those confused about the process of entering and reversing samsara, as well as to those who would like to be free, the Buddha explained dependent origination. Kamalashila wrote in his commentary to the Rice Seedling Sutra, it is helpful to keep in mind the general order that has been outlined above. Now here, this is the general order of taking rebirth into the samsara for every human being or every living being. Now what happens? Beside that, there are a lot of other things that also can cause the existence into the samsara. According to the literature, according to the scriptures, there are 4 types of births that the bodhisattvas take in the samsara. The first one is a very general one. It's due to the karma. Bodhisattvas take birth into the samsara due to the karma. That is, as I explained, according to the kind of movement into the 12 links of dependent origination. Then there is another way of taking the birth into the samsara for the bodhisattvas, that is due to the aspirations. due to the strong aspirations, bodhisattvas can take birth into the samsara. And that is the second way of the birth that bodhisattvas can take into the samsara. Then there is a third way of taking the birth. Through the power of concentration, bodhisattvas can choose where to be born and which place and which spot and which kind of person to be born. That is a kind of a bodhisattva's way of taking rebirth. And then there's a fourth one, that is through the power of kind of spiritual attainment. That's the highest way of taking birth of the bodhisattvas. That is just through choosing where to take birth. That doesn't need to involve aspirations, and that doesn't need to involve particular concentrations. So these are the four different types of births that the bodhisattvas can go through while they are existing in samsara for the benefit of sentient beings. So the basic rule of law of taking birth into the samsara applies to general public. But then when the person spiritually evolved into the path, then there are kind of special rules that can be engaged. So we need to understand rebirth and reincarnation in this kind of wider perspective. And when we go to the Vajrayana tradition, there are particular ways of kind of affecting or influencing the rebirth. There is this concept of the mixing and transferring, the mixing of consciousness and the transferring of consciousness, which is a well-established in the tradition of the Marpa Chöki Lodu, and then the practitioners of the highest Yoga Tantra, that they train in a particular variety of concentration, which is known as mixing or combining of birth to a kind of nirmanakaya, mixing and combining of the death to the dharmakaya, mixing and combining of the kind of intermediate state to the sambhogakaya. This is the secret of the Vajrayana practice, particularly to how to kind of take rebirth into the samsara and how to reincarnate and how to continue the spiritual kind of journey that they have started. So we need to understand the kind of a wider and kind of all-encompassing the process of reincarnation and wider perspective of the rebirth from that that angle. So I would like to conclude here with these notes. Thank you very much.